Okay, my friends, I'm going to give you the whirlwind tour before we get started. We are going to be looking at this right here, which is the eye of the Sahara. Look at these little details and the look of it. This is a regular eyeball, and my contention is that there is enough similarity to make a good case that they are the same. Now, this is what Plato said, the eye of Atlantis, which looks like an eyeball to me. And here's the Grand Canal, and here's the rings, and all that business. Now, a friend of mine, Tish Egerton, who I just heard from, thank God, has this eyeball right here. And there's the Grand Canal, there's the center, and here's the rings around this eyeball. And that is the optic nerve. And I'm just giving you the whirlwind. We're going to go to each one of these little pieces that I'm talking about in a second. This is the back of the eyeball. This is the muscle strap. The anchor's right here. This, I believe, is the optic nerve that broke right off. And this is the Grand Canal in a regular eyeball. And this, we're going to see all of the nerve fibers and all the little tiny spots in the nerves that nobody's ever even known about, really. They hardly even know about it. This shows them pretty good, that they come down and they make all these different channels that allow different colors in. So it's a little complicated, but we're going to see all kinds of blood vessel investures, and then we're going to see actually the actual tissue that makes up the optic nerve. It's just like little blocks, just like this. Click, 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 and we're going to actually see those. One last thing to show you before we go into action here is this is an opal eye. You can see it's an eyeball, and that's the strap, which is the muscle that pulls that eyeball back and forth, and then there's like 6 of them all around, but that shows it quite clearly. And on tissues, I believe it also shows it quite clearly. This right here, and I think I drew it all somewhere, sketched it out. This is the muscle, I believe, and this is the optic nerve where it just broke off. That's hers. But in this desert, it's all there in one piece. We can see all of it, all of it. Okay, we're going to take a little deeper dive into the optic nerve in a second. But I just want to show you how this ends up. Can you see over there? No, I don't think you can. Okay, now I think you can. The eyeballs have a channel coming back to the brain, the optic nerve. Now, that optic nerve has some extremely serious details, and that is back here. All right, let's plow in here and look. Now, over to the right, this is the muscles. There's 4 around outside, and then there's 2 that make it go this way and that way, and then these other ones go up in all these other ways. So there's 6 muscles, really. Now, in addition to those 6 muscles, there's an optic nerve. There it is right there. Now, let's look real close at that optic nerve. This book is just unbelievable at the detail. In that optic nerve are all of these little nerve fibers that have little blocks. You can see them. Now, there's a section here that's a little bit different, and then it goes into the full-fledged highway, basically. You see how it's a little bit different to the front one there? The detail and the anatomy of our bodies is just phenomenal. And every single cell in your body has to produce certain chemistry to make it work. It's a very, very elegant process. And I have no way to explain the things that I am going to show you, but they are there, and I am a material researcher. So if a material exists, I research it. That's what I did. All right, this is the backside of Tish's eyeball. Now, I'm going to draw it out for you because it's a little hard to determine if you haven't really researched this a lot. There was a muscle you saw. Now, I believe this is where the muscle broke off, and that is the break of the muscle. And this runs in, and it locks in like right there. And it locks in with these circular patterns like claws. And that's what pulls this muscle back and forth. I believe this right here is where the optic nerve came out of her eyeball. Now, let's take a look at it from the above shot, and you'll be able to see that line down the center and the rings. Okay, couple of interruptions. I hope I'm in the right position here. I believe I left off showing how this back of the eye implanted and the muscle and the optic nerve, and then I was going to proceed to the Grand Canal and the different rings. You see these rings? They're going to collapse, and they're going to be regular rings. So there's going to be high spots and low spots, high spots and low spots, exactly like Plato said. And then it came down to the optic nerve, which I will show you or have shown you. Again, I sort of got lost in this presentation, but the optic nerve is right here, and in my book, my anatomy book, it's a little more easy to see. All right, I'm almost positive I showed you this, but I'll make sure. That's the eyeball, and that's the optic nerve running down that stalk towards the brain, bringing all those signals in these blocks. Well, we could see these blocks in the Sahara Desert, right next to the eye of the Sahara. You see these blocks right there? That's what you're looking at. If we back right out of here, oops, and follow that over to the eye of the Sahara, that's where the optic nerve comes in here. And this is a lot of chemistry. There's a lot of interface here between those blocks and coming in. Now I have another shot here that I can show you. All of this here leading all the way back is all part of this optic nerve complex. Then of course you have the artery. There's a major artery that comes in to feed this thing. And I will show you all of these little nuances that show precisely what happens when the eye transfers these impulses. And they're all related to different chemistry. I don't know if I showed you this or not, but this is fascinating to me. Hold on. You see this? Watch this. You got potassium, you got sodium, you got calcium, you know, and there's different species of each one of these, which means they have different molecular makeup. They bounce harder or softer. Let's go with that. And that's why you get red light and blue light and green and all these things you can see, because the same light banging into stuff is coming back. Why is it red over here and green over there and blue over here? Same light. It's got to have something to do with what it's hitting. Well, what it's hitting is either hard or soft. If it's soft, it bounces back red. If it's hard, it bounces back blue, really powerful. It's as simple as that. And then this, you see how deep the red is here? So it can't, it's not going to get absorbed very hardly at all, so it very lightly pushes in. These are right on the edge and bam, they give really hard shots either way. So this is kind of interesting to me. I like the details. I can't help myself. A lot of people, the details mean nothing to them. I can't help myself. The details that's the only thing that's important. If you can't get to the details, oh, that doesn't matter, well, then nothing matters. Now, believe it or not, you see all these ridges running across there? That's exactly what it is in an eyeball, where the nerve fibers run back from the eyeball, which is right up here. And these are the nerve fibers that run back down. And they come out in these little blocky looking blocks like this. You see? And then look at this stuff. This is some kind of very, very strange biology, my friends. I could, you know, I notice all these different colors because the colors, to me, I understand the biology because of the colors. A lot of times. Sometimes you really can't tell much, but when you see all these vibrant colors, you know that you got some a lot of transition metals going on. When you got transition metals going on, you got a lot of chemistry. And your eyeball, I'm sure it takes a lot of chemistry to make it see all these different colors. And this all runs right up to here. You see how much chemistry is going on in here? Heading all the way up towards that eyeball. And over here is all the blood supply and everything that comes into the eyeball over here. You see that? And that's the same stuff that was on Tish's eye. You know, it's not exactly identical looking, but pretty darn close. There was a big glob looking stuff hanging off to the side, and I believe this is right here where hers broke off right about here. And the rest was the eyeball. Okay, so knowing that everything we've been taught is not really true about our history and so forth, Worlds in Collision was in 1950. He became destroyed. He's my hero, Immanuel Velikovsky. I actually wrote a book in support of him. It's not completely correct because it was like 10 years ago that I did it, and a couple of things have changed since then, but it's an introduction to why he was destroyed, and it was by academia. It's the same as my research. It's very, very suppressed because he had all the actual documentation and the true history, and I have the actual specimens and the DNA tests and everything else. So this is not something new. It's just something that we have to deal with sooner or later, and today is sooner, so let's do it sooner. All right, so I'm just going to point out a couple things. Remember I showed you Tish's eyeball with the Grand Canal and the optic nerve back here and the strap. This is identical to this, to the eye of the Sahara, and to Plato's rendition of the Grand Canal coming in and hitting the eye. There it is right there. There's your Grand Canal. In the center, it bubbles up. Very, very interesting stuff, and all completely written about in history. There's no mystery here if you start to pay attention and then ask questions. In all this time, I've had no questions ever asked of me by anybody in academia. And it accounts to the fact that they don't want to fess up to the fact that some of these ancient stories were factual. And they were factual, I can guarantee you that. Velikovsky is the guy to research. And he claims 3,500 years ago there was a total cataclysm on the earth. And I say that's what created my mud fossils. Because everything got cooked, because we almost got hit by Venus. And it was recorded in every culture. And he claims that this is when the Jews escaped from Egypt. They weren't let go. They didn't say, okay, you guys can leave. No, this was like 3,500 years ago. During this chaos, they were able to gather themselves together and get the hell out of town. And then the flood waters were all happening, all kinds of things were happening, and then it wiped out some of the Pharaoh's guys. That's what it says. And that's what all of this history was written about. So I'm looking at a material evidence support for a lot of these ancient texts. And that's what I would like to talk about. And if you want to live your life not understanding what our real history is, then that's up to you.